Hi, this is Scott Garibay, and today we're going to talk about Dungeons and Dragons, and we're specifically going to talk about Ghost of Saltmarsh, and what an elegant job Ghost of Saltmarsh does for setting up a strong Dungeons and Dragons setting to bring your player characters in, where they get to pick the winners, right? And excuse me. And Ghost of Saltmarsh is really a shockingly good Dungeons and Dragons 5th edition book. I really like a lot of the Dungeons and Dragons 5th edition. Excuse me, spring's coming. A lot of pollen in the air. Excuse me. So basically, the Dungeons and Dragons 5th edition collection, we're getting close to 35 books now, right? And there's some real winners and there's some losers. And I really feel that Ghost of Saltmarsh is spectacularly good and is definitely on the winner side. And so basically, where do we land as far as how does it land on the winner side? Well, one of the things it does is it does an absolutely fantastic job of building a world, or building a realm. Okay, so one of the things we might want to start thinking about for Dungeons and Dragons is these specific realms. Excuse me. These specific realms, and these specific realms are very here's the other thing is, what are we going to call things, right? So we have Spelljammer. This may actually help us to understand what we're going to choose. So we have these specific realms, right? And or do we call them planes? This is a kind of an open question. One of the reasons why is, I don't know if you guys are recognizing it. Well, I hope you are starting to recognize it. Magic the Gathering there is no question, it is at this point very clearly creating new canon within Dungeons and Dragons. The new, so I've been looking in depth at the new Magic the Gathering Baldur's Gate Commander set. And one of the things is these planeswalkers, so there are planeswalkers who are walking to Faerun, to Ravnica, to Theros, to Dominaria, right? And some of these realms are some of these realms are very clearly, they are specifically Dungeons and Dragons realms. So the idea of them being as planes is part of the issue. And right now, Wizards of the Coast has two products, right? And they are trying to synergistically merge them. And so they're going to need to answer these questions. Are these realms or are these planes, right? So let's call Keoland let's call Saltmarsh its own plane, okay? So basically, Keoland is where Saltmarsh is, okay? And it is a specific realm on a plane, right? Keoland is led by King Scooty, okay? Saltmarsh is up to the north, and it's just a little fishing town, okay? It's a prosperous fishing town, and it's done well, and it's been there for a millennia. It's a very old, well-established fishing town, okay? Fishing, not a village, a fishing town, okay? And they've done well with it. So you have everything going forward with this, and what Saltmarsh, and by the way, spoilers for Saltmarsh here, for Ghost of Saltmarsh. And by the way, this is a special book. This was the design lead on this was Kate Welch, who I believe was specifically handpicked to be Mike Merle's specific follow-up, right? So that we wouldn't have literally the 6th white male in a row as the Dungeons & Dragons design lead. It's really kind of sad that we landed here, but this is where we landed. Kate Welch did an amazing job on Ghost of Saltmarsh. It really is an exceptional book. And one of the reasons why it's exceptional is it does something that's very unique within Dungeons & Dragons history and very special, and makes Ghost of Saltmarsh, in my opinion, a powerful template for what you should do with your own Dungeons & Dragons game. You want to create planes where you have clear sides, and these sides are very clearly positioned to allow the player characters to pick the winners. All right, so let's talk about the sides, fascinating sides in Ghost of Saltmarsh. There's two sides in Ghost of Saltmarsh. There's Traditionalists and there's Loyalists, okay? The Traditionalists are Saltmarsh natives who are smugglers. They have a tradition of smuggling. They are good at smuggling goods on the water. So Saltmarsh is well positioned in Keelland to receive many ships that are coming into the harbor, right? And they're bringing all kinds of goods, right? And there are also all kinds of goods going outbound, into the sea. And specifically in Saltmarsh, there is a robust number of families who have a tradition of smuggling. Now, this is very interesting because smuggling is a crime, okay? And it's basically when ships are smuggling, they are taking things into the harbor or out of the harbor, and those things are never declared, okay? And that means there's no taxes on them, right? So the crime here is that the King Scooty of Keelland is not getting his tax duty, right? Now, the people of Saltmarsh don't think of this as a crime. They think of this as a tradition, right? And the book actually refers to them as traditionalists. They want Saltmarsh to remain the way it's always been, okay? Now, King Scooty has seen what's been going on in Saltmarsh. Saltmarsh is this prosperous fishing town, but King Scooty don't really see no cheddar from it, right? He doesn't really see a lot of taxes coming from it. And in addition to that, because it's this smuggler cove, right? This traditional smuggler's cove, there is the people of Saltmarsh want to keep it dingy. They don't want a lot of growth. They don't want a lot of they want to keep it dark and not bright, right? Like, it helps them for Saltmarsh to kind of coast along, remaining the same size. If there is wealth going in there, that wealth is bundled up in coins and shoved under a bed. It's not really, and maybe you get a little bit of a nicer ship, right? But there isn't a lot of ostentatiousness. There aren't a whole lot of new buildings being built in Saltmarsh, and Saltmarsh is supposed to stay the same, right? So King Scooty sees all this, and he sends in Loyalists, and this is the second front, okay? So this, essentially, a dwarven mining team is sent. A dwarven mining team is sent to go to Saltmarsh, and they say, hey, take these mining crews, right, and bring them into Saltmarsh, right? So, and basically, the reason why they're going to do that is they're going to go into the mountain and they're going to mine out gold. And there's going to be a new profit center in Saltmarsh. With this profit center, with this new gold, there should be an eruption of commerce. And all kinds of new people, new building, new activity is going to be drawn to Saltmarsh. All of this is bad for smuggling. So the traditionalists are smugglers. The loyalists are people who are trying to create a new economic center for Saltmarsh and bring Saltmarsh into the current century where it becomes a profit maker for the king, right? For King Scooty, and starts generating actual coin for the actual king. And smuggling starts to go down. Now, this is really fascinating because King Scooty doesn't say, hey, I want to get all these smugglers dead, send up a whole bunch of, armed troops and, root them out and kill them, right? Like, that's one option he has. He has the power, he has the money, he could do it, right? But he says, no, that's not the right way to go. I want to change Saltmarsh from within. I want to change the culture and build a new profit center there, right? This mining concern, right? Very, very interesting. What's really interesting is the way the Wizards of the Coast design team, the 5th edition design team, built this. they do not present the Traditionalists as bad guys. There's a third faction called the Scarlet Brotherhood, and they say flat out the Scarlet Brotherhood is a bunch of people who are aligned with the old king and basically want to overthrow King Scooty. And actually, I think they want to assassinate him, right? And it says flat out in the book, the Scarlet Brotherhood is not a sympathetic faction. They are not. They are just flat out bad, right? They don't say bad. They say there are no redeeming qualities for the Scarlet Brotherhood, saying very clearly that the Traditionalists, who have a tradition of crime, right, that they're not bad. Now, this is very, very interesting because what you're seeing here is a very headlong discussion, in my opinion, of American economy, right? One of the issues that we have right here in America is, under President Obama, one of the things he did was he decriminalized 420, right? And so 420 already very much in America, right, has transitioned from being a clear crime, which no one could really see any redeeming qualities of her, to becoming a tradition, right? So it's against the law, right? And it's really not a good option that people are going to want to do or use generally. But it's because we're saying, hey, this is a tradition. Wink, wink, nudge, nudge, look the other way. And this has been going on for so long now that it is becoming not really viewed as a very clear crime operation, but more as an American tradition, right? And so I think that Wizards of the Coast opened this discussion very intentionally, right? And this is one of the things that I think is really fascinating. Like Dungeons and Dragons just does not function like anything else in the game space. Like, these kind of conversations are not being had in board games or in any other tabletop role-playing games at this level. It's just unheard of. These are very nuanced, very deep cultural questions, right? And now the thing that I think is really interesting is Dungeons & Dragons 5th edition really invites the player to come into Ghost of Saltmarsh and choose the winner. Who's going to win? Are they going to end? And the reality is, it's put on the edge of a needle, right? Where if the player characters back the Loyalists, the Loyalists are going to walk out the winners, right, of this battle between the Traditional and the Loyalists. And if the player characters choose the Traditionalists, they're going to walk out. The Traditionalists are going to walk out the winner. And so this is where I think, this is the model. This is a perfectly executed template within Dungeons & Dragons 5th edition. Not every Dungeons & Dragons 5th edition book is perfect, right? But this one is as close as you're going to get. I'm reading Ghost of Saltmarsh with just a smile on my face all the way through. It is so well crafted, and I really think when you go to build your own Dungeons & Dragons 5th edition world, this is what you want. You want to put down factions that have two different factions that have redeeming qualities, and you try to split the cake as evenly as you can. And you step back from it, and you let it go, and you let the players choose. You don't know where they're going to land, right? You want you want to make a fertile space for the conversation. You want to make a fertile space for the overall, for for them to have the time and the space to make the decisions they want to make. I'm very impressed with Ghost of Saltmarsh. I think this is the model. Set up factions and let the actions of your player characters matter, right? They are going to pick the winners and they're going to pick the losers, and there are going to be real consequences for the community over what they chose. All that's my opinion. I'd love to hear your thoughts. Let me know in the comments below. Please consider liking and subscribing, and have a wonderful millennium.